Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Irish Cancer Society and the NCCP Nursing Researcher Showcase. And we are absolutely delighted to see so many of you actually here, because I know that when people register as well, sometimes it's watching the recording as opposed to attending. So it's lovely to see so many people here. And just a reminder that in the interest of the fact that the target audience of today's talks are really going to be negotiating very busy clinical schedules, and that the session is going to be recorded today for those who are unable to make it. So just to be aware of that, if there's any questions. For those who don't know me, my name is Sarah Tighe. I'm the Cancer Survivorship Research Coordinator here at the Irish Cancer Society, and I'm also managing our 2025 Cancer Nurse Researcher Award, which is currently open to applications. And I can touch on the details later towards the end of the session, but just briefly to say that the Nurse Researcher Showcase is really a byproduct of this wonderful relationship that we've been so lucky to have between the Irish Cancer Society and the NCCP. And that over time then led to the Cancer Nurse Researcher Award, or the CNRA, as you will hear some of us referring to it today. And with the increasingly demanding roles and really a lack of clinical academic career pathways for nurses, it's really vital to the Irish Cancer Society, and I know the NCCP share this thought, that we need to support nurse-led research to really drive forward innovative but clinically relevant research in Ireland and to really maximise the impact of the work that's being done. So the CNRA grant has provided over 600,000 so far to nurse-led research projects, and we're going to hear from some of these awardees today. So the 2025 award is currently open, and it's offering 150,000 for a project that's going to be at least 18 months in duration. And really the focus of the award, and it has been the kind of theme for all of the years of the awards, is to fund nurse-led clinical academic research partnerships to carry out a research project that's going to positively impact patients' care and outcomes. So really that partnership between what the nurses are experiencing every day in the clinical setting, matched with a real mentorship and growth in the career development of that clinical lead with their relationship, in their relationship with an academic partner. So to start us off, I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Nikki Warner, who is our Grants Programme Manager at the Irish Cancer Society. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, and hi everyone. So I'm going to be brief, but I just want to say a big thank you so much for everyone for being here today. Like Sarah said, I'm the Grants Programme Manager here on the research team at the Society. So just at the Society, we are the largest voluntary funder of cancer research in Ireland, and we're very proud of the Cancer Nursing Research Award. We've been lucky enough to have the support of the National Cancer Control Programme to run this award for the last few years. We're particularly excited today to hear from some of the past and current awardees of the CNRA. So at the Irish Cancer Society, we really do appreciate the value that nurse researchers bring to the cancer research landscape. We know studies have shown that nurses play a crucial role in developing the research culture in healthcare settings, as well as nurse-led research significantly contributing to improving and developing cancer patient care, which is obviously something that we're very passionate about at the Irish Cancer Society, and the NCCP is as well. So I was kind of reading around it as well, and I was noticing that there was a recent priority setting exercise that the European Oncology Nursing Society published quite recently in March of this year. And they were kind of looking at areas where, where do nurses feel that there's more research required, more nursing-led research required. And among the topics that cropped up were that kind of psychological and social support, that nurse-led care piece, models of cancer care, service delivery and technology. And I was just struck by the fact that today you're actually going to hear a lot on those topics from the outstanding nurses who have had the CNRA in previous years. So we're really excited to hear from them. So we are very proud of these outstanding award-winning researchers, of our CNRA awardees from the last few years. And we really do hope that some of you listening today will be encouraged to apply to the 2025 call with any projects or ideas that you might have yourself. So as always, we are here to help you along the way. You can contact us at research@irishcancer.ie, put in your questions into the chat box today. If we don't get to them, we will get to them afterwards. And it's just to say thank you so much for coming along. Thank you to Sarah for organising, and for Anya as well, and for all the speakers here today, and for Lisa and Terry from the NCCP. So just on that note, I'll hand you over to Terry from the NCCP to say a few words.
Thanks, Nikki. Well, I think it's always good to look back to see how far we've come. And in 2019, the initial partners with the Irish Cancer Society and NCCP were the ONMSD and the HRB. And the main aim of this award then, and continues to be now, was to stimulate and support the cancer nursing research agenda in Ireland. And we agreed at the time that it was to be nurse-led partnership between the nursing applicant and the HEI academic researcher, with the nurse being the lead of the process. So the research undertaken needed to focus on areas that would positively impact on patient care and be aligned to the National Cancer Strategy recommendations. Public patient involvement was also called out as a key component from the outset. And I think having the objectivity of our colleagues in the UK as external panel reviewers has added to the rigour when determining the successful grant applicants. You'll be hearing shortly from previous grant recipients and the calibre and high quality of the research that has been produced as a direct result of this funding. The joint academic partnership and the patient value is really apparent and very evident in each of the initiatives undertaken. And the enthusiasm and energy from each of the applicants has been refreshing from concept to completion of all of these research initiatives. A special word of thanks to Claire and the ICS team for partnering with us in this. It's been a real pleasure to work with you, and to Deirdre Mulligan, my colleague in the ONMSD, and Lisa Murray and Louise Mullen from the NCCP, who are constantly driving the research agenda, not only trying to sell it to our own colleagues within the NCCP, but also nationally. And it has been a real pleasure to see this Cancer Nursing Research Award going from strength to strength over the last 6 years. And I really look forward to the continued success. Thanks a million.
And we'll move on to our presentations then. Katrina, I think you're going to be up first. So Katrina is one of our currently funded CNRA nurse researchers, and Katrina was awarded the grant in 2021. So she's right in the middle of everything and is doing her PhD. Katrina and her team are based at the University Hospital Galway, and I don't want to go into your research too much, Katrina, but it's basically focused on improved vascular access for oncology patients, which is an incredibly important topic. But before we go on to the presentations, I just wanted to put a quick reminder out that if you do have any questions for today's speakers, you can write them in the Q&A, which should be at the bottom of your screen, and we can get to those at the end. But you can also send me an email at the end of the webinar, and we will make sure to give those contact details. So yeah, Katrina, when you're ready, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can all see it. And everyone can hear me okay? Great. So thanks so much to the Irish Cancer Society, the NCCP and the ONMSD for the invitation to come today. It's really, really exciting for me, who's going through it, to see other applicants or other interested applicants coming in, because I hope you take from my presentation how much I'm enjoying this, and really probably one of the best decisions I made to pursue this. Try share screen. Apologies.
It's sharing okay, just hasn't moved forward.
I'm just going to go back.
Telling you it's against us today. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So I'm the proud recipient of the CNRA in 2021. So it was towards the end of 2021. And just to be candid, before this award, I was a clinician first with limited research experience and knowledge. My publication record was one modest pilot study. Today, at this stage, going into my 4th year, I have 4 peer-reviewed papers, 2 in press, a book chapter, and 5 co-authorships. And this explosion of output isn't just accidental. It's the direct result of the CNRA's belief in nursing-led science. So the CNRA invests in nurses as knowledge creators and not just knowledge users. And for me, that meant 3 game changers. Firstly, the grant which enabled our work, the organizational buy-in from my hospital where I work clinically, And then the mentorship, which is embedded in the CNRA, which has been mentioned already. So having an academic as a co-applicant, and my supervisor was my co-applicant, Dr. Peter Carr. And from the outset, he championed and challenged me and embedded research excellence into the project's DNA. So the CNRA has been transformative. It really proves, and I hope I prove throughout my presentation, that when nurses get real resources, not just goodwill, an academic partnership, not just oversight, and institutional commitment, not just permission, we shift the paradigm. And I'm going to share some of the work that I've completed over the last 3 years. But just before I do, again, to the Irish Cancer Society, the NCCP, ONMSD, and my academic lead, Peter Carr, thank you so much for investing in me. This award didn't just fund a project, but it has really built a researcher. And to future applicants tuned in today, your inexperience isn't a barrier like mine was, and it's why this grant exists. So this is just my project plan, and like any kind of PhD, you'll see a kind of a circuitous route. It hasn't gone in a straight line. So like Sarah mentioned, my project was about vascular access for the delivery of SACT. So we felt that cancer patients, as we all believe, deserve reliable, pain-free vascular access. But today, 1 and 2 have delayed and failed IV cannulation. And my PhD tackles this and increases our knowledge around this 5-pillar strategy. So the first was the evidence synthesis. And then the systematic review, or Cochrane. I'll go into them all slightly in a bit more detail. And then our European practice survey, our methods paper, and then the ultimate test, our interventional study, our RCT. So our project began with a bold question: can ultrasound-guided IV cannulation transform outcomes for oncology patients? But to innovate, we first need to map the evidence. And with the CNRA funding, we conducted the largest scoping review in this field, analysing 240 papers across 32 countries. We found 18 randomized studies which justified our need to conduct a systematic review, but we found no RCTs around nurse-led ultrasound-guided IV access. Our review identified the lack of papers around clinician factors related to VAD and SACT. Out of those 240 papers, only 7 papers were around clinician factors. For that reason, we decided to move next to our practice survey. But this wasn't just a literature review, it was strategic groundwork, and the CNRA enabled this meticulous approach. So the practice survey was our next paper. This represented unprecedented European nursing leadership in vascular access research. We had 18 international experts from over 10 countries who co-authored on this work, including PPI, which was embedded at the very beginning. In fact, 2 of our PPI members are presenting this project in ESMO in October. It was disseminated by key organisations, being ICS, NCCP, and then internationally with UCONS, EONS, and the European School of Oncology. Currently, it's in press with the Journal of Cancer Policy. Next was our methods paper, and up here on the top, I think it's the left-hand corner on your side, we have Cree Buckley from the Irish Cancer Society, Jackie Daly, who's the director of the East Galway Cancer Support Centre, and Una O'Grady, one of our PPI members. So they've been critical throughout all of our projects, and they have sat on various panels with us. This methods paper detailed the rigorous design and execution of a European survey. Again, it went through the structured questionnaire, which our PPI were involved with. Our next paper was our Cochrane systematic review, and our protocol was published in September 2024, and we're currently working with on the review. Again, this is with a huge body of co-authors, nursing, vascular surgeons, Cochrane methodologists, and PPI. The EU PIC trial, this is our clinical trial. And this is our staff training is starting next week on this, and patient enrolment will start in September 2025. And this is a mixed method RCT across 3 centres. So Galway University, Portiuncula Hospital, and we're travelling up to Letterkenny. And this is evaluating ultrasound guided versus traditional PIVC insertion by oncology nurses. And we will randomise 98 patients to this. We'll also do a qualitative study around and focus groups around staff and and patients' quality of life and confidence levels regarding using the machines. Our research findings have been disseminated globally through high-impact conferences, including INS in Boston, WOCOVA, which is the World Congress of Vascular Access in Prague, the Safer Cancer Care Conference in Brussels, OECI conferences in Brussels. We presented in MASC in June of this year, and we present 2 papers in Berlin in EONS. We've also been invited to the European Cancer Summit later this year. So we are also showcasing our research at national level, Clinical Trials Ireland and National Research Days. This strategic outreach targets diverse audiences, clinicians, policymakers, and researchers to drive adoption of evidence-based vascular access practice, influence oncology care standards, and amplify policy impact across healthcare systems. This is some of our travels in the last 2 years with our presentations. So I want to finish by extending my deepest gratitude again to the ICS and NCCP for their visionary funding and support. Like I said at the beginning, when I started out on this journey, I had 1 paper with very limited research experience. My master's actually was in psychotherapy, so had no research component in it. So this has been a huge learning curve for me. So thank you for the visionary funding and support, and to my supervisor and co-lead of the CNRA Award for the unwavering mentorship. And just to say again to any aspiring nurse researchers to seize this opportunity, apply for the grant. My journey, I hope, proves that when supported with motivation, you have the potential to significantly contribute to nursing research and perhaps be the next nurse scientist. So just go for it. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Katrina. Thank you so much. I love just go for it. I mean, what have you got to lose in that situation? And yeah, I just think, especially out of your work, I think it's really wonderful to see such important networking opportunities that have arisen from your group. And I think you're just doing a phenomenal job of really showcasing and building capacity for nurse-led research. I mean, the exposure is the important thing to show people that they can actually do it, and to see the wonderful change that can happen as a result. Really fantastic. Great. Well, Katrina, if you wouldn't mind stop sharing your slides there. Introduce you very briefly. So this is Yvonne Hanhauser, who was awarded the CNRA grant in 2019. And Yvonne's research career really has gone from strength to strength. And it really is a pleasure to say that the CNRA funding had any kind of part to play in that wonderful journey. So Yvonne works with the Trinity St. James's Cancer Institute, which really has been renowned for supporting nurse and allied health professional-led research. So it's an incredible place to be based. And yeah, Yvonne, if you want to let me know when you'd like me to move to the next slide, and I will do that for you.
Okay, thanks very
Everyone
much.
can see them. You can see them, Yvonne, yeah?
I can, yeah.
Fantastic.
And I'm a bit hoarse today as well, so it's all going a little bit.
No
So
problem.
yeah, I'll just quickly go through exactly that, really, Sarah, how much the grant has transformed, the way I manage research in my practice now as an AMP. We're very clinically driven, so getting that backing to actually lead a project has been, as Katrina says, transformational, really. A little bit different. I think we got our funding primarily from Irish Cancer. So Terry, don't get annoyed if I haven't got NCCP here. We were second in our competition, so slightly different. But again, we were so delighted to get this opportunity to do a piece of research that has made a huge difference in practice in James's. So our research was the development of a risk reduction patient decision aid for women who are BRCA gene carriers. And I'm just going to go a little bit into how the grant process can be transformational, and then a little bit about the research and see if that helps sort of inspire people also. And the dissemination of the research has also been massively helpful. So I'll go into the first page really there, Sarah, and again, I find it hard to read my own, but why do we apply for a grant? It really enhances a patient outcomes. I'm going to try and make it slightly bigger if that's possible. It really advances our scientific knowledge, and advances your professional career as well. It's a process that experts in your field, then they really acknowledge, that you have got expertise and you are worthy of developing a project and getting private or public funding. It can enhance your institution. It gives you financial benefits in that you can promote an idea. And I'll go to the next page, if that's all right. So really, it does provide you with resources that you need to probably complete like a major project that interests you. I think really importantly, and Katrina touched on it as well, is that this really builds capacity for clinical nurses to carry out research. Again, I would have been, master's would be my main qualification, so I wouldn't have had that experience of actually carrying out the research. I participated in a lot of research, but this is a whole different level in that you, with an academic support, can actually lead a project, and it massively develops your insight into research, and it's a huge impact on the profession of nursing. I think you can get salary support. Obviously, it will potentially release somebody to have that protected time. It can fund personnel that you can bring in to help with the research. We had a research assistant, and we also were able to fund our scientist, Sarah, and it was phenomenal to have that ability to help you with the actual research with people that are so used to it, and the academic side of it also. It helps with obviously equipment and travel. We can support conferences. Again, we've presented nationally, internationally as well. And also, when you apply for that budget, when you apply for the grant, there is that detailed budget section. Again, the academic people are amazing at helping to put the grant in. And, I wouldn't have had any experience in trying to put together a budget. But then once you've got that team and that backing, it's a massive help to get it going. Okay, so there's facilitators and barriers to any research. You can have organizational culture is a facilitator, really, if you've got great nursing management that will encourage you, support you, help with that. Lack of time is a real barrier, particularly for clinical nurses. And we're always looking for that protected time. And if anything, this experience has made us be very, very mindful of the fact that we should be protecting our time. I think our medical colleagues have got that down to a fine art. We're not as good in nursing at doing that, but with the development of these grants, I think that's really improving. The leadership, you've got your managers, a clinical nurse lead who wants to start developing research within clinical practice. So you're not seeing that it's just lack of opportunities. You're seeing that those grants that are available via NCCP, ICS, or HRB. Motivation, we feel that we're not able to do this. Like I said, if you've just done a master's, you're not as familiar with running a program. So you feel you might have lack of skills, whereas something like this will really, really bring that on. The academic support is a must. You need, that's that link to getting that clinical question into a good research topic, and actually getting the project done. The impact is important. I think nursing ideas are amazing. They don't get enough recognition, and we have got an impact. And again, we feel lack of support and mentorship for that, whereas this type of a grant and that combination of clinical and academia is really, really crucial. And publication, we've had 3 publications so far, with 2 more pending. We'd never have thought we would be developing something that would have such recognition in conferences and internationally also. So I'll just fly along here because I know I've only got 10 minutes. So the challenge is really, again, like I say, in clinical practice, it's that protected time. Do we have enough experience? Do we have the training? These are the opportunities to start you getting into that sort of field of your experience. Research and ethics is timely, difficult to maneuver. So again, the support with the scientific and the academic people, it really helps get us through the ethical part of things. Networks, knowing what's out there, get the ball rolling, and then just going into the next slide. You just want to find out what your idea is. Do I have a clinical question? Usually it's based on an issue in your clinical practice, an observation, something that you picked up on that we really need to develop. What does it say in the literature? And that's just us going and seeing, well, is there an issue here? You can look at the literature if you think that it's already been done and there's already loads of literature, then maybe you don't have a research question, but maybe you need to go back and refine it and maybe narrow down your topic. And then perhaps there is a niche there that you need to start exploring. So for us, we definitely felt there was. For the women that I would see in my clinical practice are predominantly unaffected, high-risk gene carriers. I also have a breast cancer part of my role, so I'll just go back to my the research one there. It's just to say that, once you find that you find that area, then you can say, right, there's something here and I can start developing it. So there are, like I say, the clinical challenge, that sort of light bulb area for us was decision making, really, for the high risk women. And when we went into the literature, we saw there wasn't a lot of decision aids actually helping these women with these massive decisions in the unaffected group primarily. There are some on the BRCA carriers who have cancer, but it's a different setting, and certainly not in the Irish setting. So, we definitely found a need to develop this for our own, cohort of patients and nationally. And the women are faced with massive decisions, reasoning for and against treatments, and it's multifactorial, very conflicting for some women. They can feel quite overwhelmed. A lot of online information may or not be reliable, and they find sometimes quite conflicting information. So we really felt that we had the clinical challenge there. So that was what we went with our grant application for. We were successful finally, and so development of the patient decision aids commenced. That was our light bulb, and that's just that's the amount of information, that these women are overwhelmed with. It was an attempt to try and give them a better service and better decision making. So develop this decision aid was what we set out to do, improve decision making for the Irish BRCA positive women. And like I say, we target it down to the women who are BRCA alterations, but who are unaffected by breast or ovarian cancer. So I think, shared decision making is huge now. We have to really practice in that way. We have our clinical judgment, but that isn't paternalistic anymore. We can't just give information. Patients' values and preferences are paramount. Best available evidence is completely necessary, and all those come together to make that decision making process. There's guidelines now to underpin that. NICE have really good guidelines, but everyone is acknowledging that it is hugely important that conversation between clinicians and our patients are supported, and it underpins everything that we do, really. So now I'm just going to get quickly into what the research involved. And the first thing I would say is the patient involvement was paramount. That was the most crucial part of the research. And it was crucial for the success of it. Patients were involved in all phases of the project, in the setting up and the governance. They were the stakeholders in our needs assessment, and that involved focus groups and consensus in Delphi surveys to really narrow down what the women thought was important for decision aid. And we also have members of scientific groups, NCCP, government bodies, the Irish charitable bodies, the Irish Cancer Society. Patients were also involved hugely in the testing and the refinement of the decision aid, the usability and the field testing. So the study itself was a mixed method. Like I say, the first phase was the project management group, the research team, the patient involvement. The next phase was really getting the content. We did scoping reviews for the evidence, the scientific part of it, and getting the best evidence that is available. Then really the patients and the experts was hugely important, and that took the form of focus groups. And then we did develop a prototype, and that was then tested, usability and field testing. So that's the methodology. Decision aids, just quickly to say, they are becoming quite standard. They're tools that really support shared decision making, help patients to understand that range of options, the pros and cons of options, and the consequences of decisions. So they are really helpful, and they really encourage that participation between the clinicians and the women. And it's not just for the women. I always say the decision aid is actually really helpful in clinical practice, because even the clinicians are finding it helpful when they are discussing options with the women. So just quickly, BRCA mutation is a very high risk for women. We primarily in this decision aid are focusing on BRCA1 and BRCA2 and looking at both breast and ovarian cancer. We will be expanding it because there are other high risk genes coming along, but that will be the evaluation of the tool and us keeping up to date with it clinically as well. So these are just quickly to say there's a lot of options. So it is called risk reduction, the actual decision aid, but we do go into all the options. So surveillance, it's not prevention, early detection, but then we really go into the decision aid, looks at breast cancer risk reduction, ovarian risk reducing surgery, and we also include chemo prevention. It's something that we actually want to study more ourselves because it isn't hugely used at the moment. So that is something that has come out of this study that we really want to explore. Why isn't it used, and where is the potential for that? So the findings of the study, really, when we went into the focus groups, the main things that came from us were receiving of information the women found was very either conflicting or scattered in all different places. The cancer management options were really important, and actually the person's well-being and health. So it's just to show you that it's hard to read all these quotes, but these are really the quotes from the focus groups, the accessibility of information, like I say, scattered, sometimes conflicting, and then the risk management options. There was fear in a lot of women's decision making, urgency. You see some of the quotes, I really felt like I just have to do this. And then well-being, the side effects of these options, massive impact on people's lives, HRT, the psychological care. So a lot of this was incorporated into the tool. Sorry, so just these are very quick slides. I just wanted to give you a quick look at what the decision aid looks like. It is interactive. You can go into it, BRCA1 or 2. I'll just keep going through these slides, and that's about the site. This goes into the different risks for the different genes, so you can select which one is important to you. You can go into it, the breast cancer risk reduction, screening, risk reducing, or you can go into ovarian risk reduction. That's some videos from our specialist. That's Liz Connolly, our consultant breast surgeon, and we've also got plastic surgeons, and the gynae teams are also on the videos. Just a decision aid is a lot about, comparing your and your options and making your decisions. And a good decision aid really has to have a validation. So the next slide shows that after comparing the options, and the next slide is, it's not just about information given, you're actually clarifying what's important to you and helping you with your decision. It's not telling you what to do. This is purely a guide. So that's kind of the summary of what we did. It's a decision aid about women's needs based on the best evidence, help women with their gene BRCA mutation that need to make decisions, facilitate, probably most importantly, that more engaged, informed, centered decision making, patient involvement in all stages, the governments up to the actual design and testing of the aid was hugely involved. There's just some of the papers that are published are here. Like I say, we've got 2 further publications. We have presented oral presentations and poster presentations at ESMO, nationally, internationally, ABS in the UK. we were at ONS in Washington, and also we have presented at the Big BRCA Symposium in Canada with this. So there are research outputs. I had to put that on. We did win an award as well. That's the healthcare awards that we won for the decision aid for use of technology and patient information. And that's really it. That's the team. So clinically and academic leads, but we also have some of our medical colleagues there. But I'm proud that it was nurse-led. We've got 5 nurses on that project. So and we've learned a lot. So that's from us. We did get slapped into COVID in ours. I meant to say that in the beginning. Our grant was in 2019, and then it was 2020. So we did have to adjust the grant quite a bit to get around a lot of the teaching and the focus groups, but we managed. So
That's wonderful, Yvonne. And I think, like, for me, just seeing a work that actually yields a tangible, usable product for me is just such joy. I think that's the beauty of clinically relevant research as well. You know what's going to work in a clinical setting. So really commend you on that. I could talk about all these projects for probably an hour each, but I'm going to move on very swiftly if that's okay. Because we have Catherine O'Brien, who is also based at the Trinity St. James's Cancer Institute, which really is a true testament to the supportive environment that group provides. But Catherine unfortunately couldn't attend in person because she had clinical commitments, but she's recorded a few messages for today's session. So I'm just going to share her slides now.
I'm sorry I can't be with you there today. I just have other commitments. But I'm delighted to be able to share my experience with you today on applying for and being awarded the Cancer Nursing Research Grant in 2023. So just a bit about myself. I've worked in cancer nursing for many years, and I have experience with primary research projects in the past. But I've always wanted to pursue my PhD. So when this opportunity came up for the Cancer Nursing Research Grant, it was, the obvious grant opportunity for me, and I was very fortunate to get it. Now, that's not to say that you have to use the grant to pursue your PhD. I mean, obviously that's the road that myself and Katrina have chosen to go down. But that's absolutely not the case at all, as Yvonne and Janice will both kind of talk about. So I suppose just to say from the very start, nursing research can be a very daunting prospect for people, but please don't let it be. Because I know some of us can be tortured from doing our masters, and the academic piece that you had to go through there. But honestly, when you're doing clinical research, it's a much nicer experience. And honestly, there's a huge amount of support out there if you just reach out and look for it. So please take the opportunity to do that. So I'm just going to take you just very quickly through what my project is. As you can see from all 4 of us, they're all very different. So mine is around fear of cancer recurrence. So it's a psychology study. So for me, what we're going to do is co-design the implementation of group-based interventions for young adult cancer patients who are experiencing moderate levels of fear of cancer recurrence. And I'm concentrating on the younger age group under the age of 50. And the acronym up the top there of my logo is the logo that was designed by my PPI team for the study. So it's the Forge study. So the nature of a PhD, there's a few different studies. So there's the literature review. I'm doing a patient survey, and then I'll be doing focus groups nationally around the country, and then there'll be a feasibility study. So this is over a period of 5 years. So the grant has been really beneficial for me to be able to support a lot of these studies. And I'm going to take you through a little bit about it now. So when you come up with an idea for a research project, the most important thing actually is that you plan it out well. And to do that, you're going to need people around you to help. So you need to get your support team. And they're going to be the ones that will flesh it out with you, that will, plan all the different aspects of it. So who are they? So the academics are really important. This is their bread and butter. This is what they do. But they need you as much as you need them, because, they don't have access to clinical patients without you. But they are really, really important. So find the academic that you can work with as well, because this person is going to be, or it might be a team of them, they're going to be on the project with you for a certain length of time. So make sure that you're both on the same page, you get on with each other, so that you can work together. From the clinical point of view, depending on what your research study is, but you may need medical support, your nursing colleagues, maybe the ones that you work with, or there might be other colleagues outside of that area, or there may be allied health professionals. So for me in my project, it's a psychology research study, so I have members of the psychology team on board. So it depends on what your project is about. And you may need admin support as well. It may be for, doing letters, posting, anything like that. So depending on what your project is, but, they're the people to get on board. So they're going to be your steering committee. And your PPI panel are so, so important. No research should happen these days without having your patient and public input. And that's regardless of whether you're applying for a grant or not. So make sure that you identify, your PPI panel, could be 1, 2, 3, there's no right number, and that's, another presentation, but, you will need to identify who are going to be your PPI panel, that, they're going to really support you, because they're going to, number one, validate the research that you're doing. They'll tell you whether it's going to work or not, and they'll have all the practical guides around, what's going to work and what's not going to work. You will need support from your PPI Ignite networks. I would reach out to them, because, it's a very different kettle of fish when you're working with a PPI panel. We've all worked with patients all our lives, and we think, that it's a no-brainer. I know how to work with patients, but it's very different when you're working with them on a research collaboration project. So PPI Ignite will help with that. So develop the project idea well. You're going to need it very well developed anyway for applying for the grant, but just in general, just plan it out well, and think about it. Now is not always the right time for you to do the research. You might have an idea now, but whether it's from a personal point of view, professional point of view, or you haven't thought it out enough, you need to plan for future opportunities. So, the grant opportunities that are out there at the moment may not be for you, but it may be, in the future. And I know when Yvonne was applying for hers, back in 2020 or 2021, she had a really good, plan in her head of what this would look like. I was miles behind, hadn't a clue, so it's taken me that length of time to actually get to where I am now. So as I said, we might just inspire you and motivate you today to look for an opportunity, but it may just not be something that comes to fruition for a while, and that's okay. I know Sarah is going to talk about the different grants that are available, but I suppose the Cancer Nursing Research Grant was the one that I was awarded in 2023, and honestly, it is a very, very valuable grant. And why, it really got you to identify who the research team was from the very start. So there's an academic research lead and a clinical nurse lead. So already you've identified, those two people, and you need to talk and describe the partnership that you have and what it's going to look like in the future. So it really kind of gets you thinking about that. Your co-applicants as well for the grant, you can have up to 10 co-applicants, and they're people who are going to support and develop this study with you. So for me, as I said, psychology grant, I have a clinical psychologist on it. It's the young adult patients, so I have, you know, nursing representation from the AYA team. My collaborators are from the support groups in the different cancer age groups. So I have a representative from Canteen and also from UCAN. So, and they're hugely valuable in making sure that everything I do around the grant is right for the patient group. The clinical buyout time in this grant is invaluable. So what it basically means is that you have protected time. So it's a minimum of 1 day a week that you step out of your clinical role because somebody has been paid to do that job for you. So I recruited that person myself, and they work my job 1 day a week. So that's my protected time. Also, the grant will support either a postdoc researcher, which I know Yvonne will talk about, or myself and Katrina used it for our PhD academic fees, or it could be, you know, master's fees or whatever. But you know, that's the benefit of the grant. And also the PPI budget. As I said to you when I was showing you the layout of what my study looks like, you know, I have patient surveys and I have focus groups. So, you know, I need to make sure that, you know, the participants of those focus groups are not left out of pocket. So, you know, there needs to be a really good PPI budget, and also for my PPI partners as well. They're coming to steering meetings, they have to travel, you know, I have to be able to make sure that they're not out of pocket. So it's really, really important, you know, those aspects of the grant. So just to finalize with, you know, I'm hoping that from today you'll get motivated to pursue nursing research, and we'll have some way inspired you. But please don't be intimidated by research. There's a huge amount of support out there. All you have to do is reach out and look for it, and please take the opportunity, because honestly you won't regret it, and it will just make all of our clinical practices so much better. So thanks very much for your time.
Wonderful. So that was Catherine's little addition to our session today. And I am very aware of how our time is going down very rapidly. So Janice, I'm not going to do a giant introduction, but just to say that Dr. Janice Richmond was also a 2019 CNRA awardee. He's based at Letterkenny University Hospital. And really, I think, Janice, one thing that's really important to note is just the amount of funding that you've been able to leverage consistently since then, which really is indicative of how something like the CNRA can kind of get a ball rolling. So we're really looking forward to hearing a little bit about your work. So I'll leave it with you then.
Thank you very much. While that's been set up, thank you very much for allowing me to present today. I work out of Letterkenny University Hospital, as Sarah has said, and I do appreciate this opportunity. And okay, next slide, thank you. And I suppose just full disclosure, we were the recipients of the inaugural award, the Cancer Nursing Research Grant in 2020. Well, it was awarded in 2019, and then we had to rewrite this the same as Yvonne because of COVID. We had four funders, the HRB, the Irish Cancer Society, the NCCP, and the ONMSD, and just thank you for that. I'm not going to go into my research today. I'm going to take a broader approach, but that was our research. So thank you, and you can move on, Sarah. And I'm just really going to go into the lived experience of being a nurse researcher and try and weave some advice in through the presentation. Next slide. So just through the application process, I suppose this is where it all starts. I think that has already been said. And right at the start, I would say build a good team. Next slide. This is our team, very professional people. The top shelf is the heavy lifters. The bottom shelf is people who came in and out throughout. So we had actually a very fluid team. Professor Andrew Murphy was my co-PI, and then Mary Grace and Alison Johnson are two nurses in Letterkenny. And then Patrick Murphy really came with Andrew Murphy. And those guys, I have to say, the work they did was just Trojan. And I would not be here today without them. And I owe them a great personal debt, and the whole team does. Professor Andrew Murphy was actually a GP, and it was Mary Grace. I give her full credit for reaching out to him. She sent him an email and she said, we're good at some parts of research and less good at others. Can you help us with the bits we're less good at, and we'll be good at the bits we are good at? And he sent a neat, lovely email back to say absolutely, he was more than happy to come on. And we didn't pay any of these guys, really. They was some funding went to NUIG, but really most of the funding went towards buying out my wage and PPI. So they gave a lot of their time in kind, and for that we're very grateful. So thank you. And next slide. So right at the start, you need to communicate the vision, I suppose I would say, to your clinical team. Don't expect them to get the vision. They will want the research, but they'll not want your time away. And that, therefore, you have to use this phrase that research is part of the advanced nurse practitioner role, or if you are an AMP. And I use that, I suppose, ad nauseum. I got letters of support up front, and I suppose I would say that's a really good thing to do. I wrote the letters, the director of nurse signed them, the chief nurse signed them, but those are good things to do up front because I had to use them as leverage eventually. Thank you, Sarah. And I suppose that came on then from a release from our role. We all do important work, it doesn't matter what we do. So when you try to exit left and I was asking for 2 days a week, there's immediately a huge deficit. And I suppose we don't have a plethora of ANPs up in Letterkenny here. So somebody had to start their education to fulfill that role. So next slide. That led to huge delays. Well, I felt it was huge. It probably isn't in hindsight. COVID delayed us and we had to rewrite the application, same as Yvonne. But there was very high level meetings in this hospital with the NCCP, and more so the Irish Cancer Society rather than the NCCP, I should say, about me and about my release, to which I was not invited. And that has left a scar. I think it's a scar that persists. I found this a very difficult time, I'll be honest. And my line manager and director of nursing kept coming back and saying, "Oh, Janice, everything that's been said about you is so positive. It's because you're so good at your job, they don't want to let you go." I didn't care. It was an extremely hurtful few months through nobody's fault, I have to say, in the Irish Cancer Society or the funders. And people I expected to have my back didn't have my back locally. And enough said about that, but I suppose just prepare for that eventuality. Next slide. But once the release happened, I suppose I just had to manufacture it. Protected time is vital, but it's difficult to secure. I eventually used the letters of support, and I suppose in fairness to chief nurse and director of nursing, they eventually gave me their full support. But I had to go against the grain really to get that. The research team are a huge source of support, and I would say use them from the minute you apply. And I didn't start the research until the release happened. And I suppose that's another piece of advice I would give. And it probably was a great source of frustration to the funders. But I just thought, if I start this, I'll never get released. And I think that's probably what the clinical team wanted. They expected me to add research into an already very busy role. So eventually I set a date, and I said, from this date, I will not be at clinics anymore. And again, that was difficult to do, but that was it was the best thing I had to do. Next slide. So then Katrina has really covered this. There's a huge learning trajectory when you move into the transition to the clinical researcher. And I suppose this is your research team. They give further methodology support. And I find this a very empowering relationship. I can't speak highly enough of this whole process, and Katrina went into that as well. Next slide. I found it a huge confidence building exercise. I mean, I had my PhD. I was different to a lot of candidates, and I tipped in and out of research, I suppose, for 20 years. My PhD was 20 years old, or nearly 20 years old, but I'd never really used it. So leading a team of people of this caliber, you can see there, the doctors, the professors, and you were the boss, you were the co-PI, and all the clinical stuff really was, came through me. So this was a huge learning curve. And it gave me huge confidence that I actually can lead a team. I needed methodology support. That was what the other people were there for. But definitely this was a huge confidence boost for me. And I enjoyed every minute. I enjoyed our meetings. I enjoyed everything that there was in the leading this team. Next slide. Next slide. And I suppose just to quote Andrew Murphy, my co-PI, I was at a presentation that he did in 2022, and he said it's like a jigsaw. The two equal parts coming together, bringing their own expertise, and one complements and needs the other. And somebody has already said that. We ask the salient research questions as clinicians, and then the HEIs can come along and provide that methodology support. So it's two equal parts. Next slide. So just to say, like, what does partnership look like? Because it's all very well to talk about this partnership, and I suppose this was an evolving experience for me. And can I just say, I met Andrew Murphy once in Sligo. He was my co-PI, and I met him at the interview, and I've never met him in person since. It was all done through email. Most of that team that I showed you a photograph of, I have never met. Patrick Murphy, I met when it was all finished and we did a joint presentation. It was done through COVID. This was all through email, sending up and down documents, Zoom calls. So it was all virtually, and they just helped keep us on the right track. But it was a very deliberate, respectful, beneficial relationship. Next slide. So on reflection, I would say upfront, select and build your team. That's of paramount importance, and think outside the box. You know, again, I credit Mary Grace for going to a GP, and you know, that wouldn't have been naturally, if I'm honest, who I would have went to, and he was absolutely the right choice. Aim high. Like, I still can't believe we wrote such an email to such a high-profile person, head of the school. And right from the very start, we had a very honest and respectful relationship. And also consider the PIs. Do they come with a team already? And Andrew did. And they provided a lot of that time in kind. So they didn't charge for it. It was completely free. We had 7 publications. So again, I suppose that's a good payment, that they're getting high profile publications, one of which was accepted only with typos. I've never had that ever in my lifetime. And I think it just showed, I suppose, that we had a niche product that they wanted to publish and allow for flexibility and team. Next slide. My PPIs, we chose 3 PPIs up front, and I thought we chose wisely. By the time we came to do the research, 1 had passed away and 2 were on palliative treatment and were unfit, and we had to then go for 2 different PPIs who were excellent. And like the previous speaker, she mentioned about PPI Ignite. We found them really beneficial. Next slide. So just on reflection, ask for more time rather than less. It comes with, as Ivana said, a day a week. I asked for 2. I don't regret it. 2 was, and you know, for the quality of work you're doing here, 2 days a week was perfect. Use the upfront letters of support to leverage this, and I would advise you to get that. If I don't think it's part of the application process, but it was actually Andrew Murphy suggested it. It may be, correct me if I'm wrong. And then PPI, consider carefully your PPI and just allow for a change in circumstances. We are dealing with cancer, sadly, and sometimes that changes. Next slide. I suppose in conclusion, and I've been very honest with you about the negatives, this was a really positive experience. I mean, again, like Katrina outlined, all the different conferences and that stuff it leads on to. So absolutely, I've travelled the world on a nursing degree over the past 30 years, and I'm very grateful for that. Gave me leadership skills, gave me confidence, and I suppose ultimately this kept me in the advanced nurse practitioner role. I respectfully say I was bored. I needed a new challenge in my life, and I would not be here in this role today if it wasn't for the Cancer Nursing Research Award. So it helped me to transition to a new job in the hospital here, even though I'm still an AMP. And we have subsequently, just about last Thursday, actually, we started a full service evaluation courtesy of the NMPDU funding, and that'll be another research project that we're involved in. So enjoy it. It's an absolute privilege to be released from your role to answer a research question appropriate to your work. And I found this a very empowering experience from beginning to end. So thank you. And thank you to the team. I should say that once more. The team were absolutely fantastic.
That's amazing, Janice. And thank you so much for really being very honest and raw with that. And I think it's something that's very, very important to us to mention on a regular basis that this is not easy. And people who are in a nursing role who would like to lead on research or even be involved in research, it's not an easy pathway. But unfortunately, you had to suffer for the cause. But we're seeing the conversations getting easier, and we're seeing, you know, conversations opening up more. So thank you so much for putting yourself forward at an earlier stage to kind of carve the pathways for people moving forward. We might wrap it up there, and I just want to thank you all again. I actually couldn't be more inspired. I'm very, very excited to see what each and every one of you do moving forward. And thank you to the NCCP as well for joining us on this very exciting journey. A recording of the webinar will be available to those who are unable to attend. So if you have any questions, there's some emails in the chat that Anya has kindly put in. There's one that can be kind of general questions, and I think mine is going in there as well for any questions related directly to the CNRA funding call as well, if you have any questions about that. But thank you all very much again, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.